the inside story on the issues that affect you and your community. This is Local 12 Newsmakers.
Good morning and welcome to Local 12 Newsmakers. Arguments about ideological purity in politics are usually the stuff of primary campaigns. That's when competing Republicans argue about who is the true conservative and competing Democrats slug it out over who is the true progressive. But in the race for Clermont County Commissioner, the general election looks a lot like a Republican primary. First, there is no Democrat in the race. Second, back in January, the Clermont County Republican Central Committee endorsed Archie Wilson, a Batavia Township trustee, over the incumbent Republican Commissioner, Scott Crosswell. Normally, this internal party fight would have been settled in a primary, but Crosswell chose to forego the primary and run in the November general election as an independent. I am joined this morning by Scott Crosswell, who has been a Clermont County Commissioner since 2003. Mr. Crosswell is a practicing attorney who has taken on a number of high-profile criminal defenses in his 30-year career. He is also a partial owner of Crosswell Motor Coach and Tour Company. His opponent, Archie Wilson, owns Midwestern Plumbing in Clermont County. He has served as a trustee in Batavia Township since 2001, is currently the chairman of that board. I am joined only by Mr. Crosswell this morning. I spoke with Mr. Wilson and extended an invitation. He has not appeared with Mr. Crosswell during this campaign in any forum. Over the years, dominant incumbents will sometimes refuse to appear with their opponents as a campaign tactic to deny them the appearance of legitimacy. I've run campaigns and I understand that tactic. But in this situation, it is the endorsed non-incumbent who refuses to meet publicly with the incumbent. That is a very unusual situation, but so be it. Scott, welcome to Newsmakers.
Thanks for having me.
How do you explain this? How do you explain the Republican decision back in January to endorse your opponent, Archie Wilson?
Well, first of all, you have to understand that it's not the Republican voter that made the endorsement. It is a group of individuals on the Clermont County Central Committee. And the Central Committee basically is controlled by elected officials in Clermont County, all of whom are Republican. They chose not to endorse me because of my budgeting practices in Clermont County. It's well known that over the past 8 years I've cut budgets in Clermont County based upon deteriorating economic times. I've taken the position that the only way that a government can run is the way that we run our homes and the way we run our businesses. If our revenues decline, we have to have a decline in spending.
I would think that's what the Republican Party would want you to do.
That's what the Clermont County Republicans run their elections on. That's what they want an elected commissioner to do unless it affects their own budget. Individually, each elected official has told me that they agree with my budgeting policies, that I've done what needs to be done.
When you say elected official, you mean prosecutor, sheriff?
Even my opponents. Even my opponents have told me that I've done the correct thing in cutting the budgets in Clermont County, but they always point out that the only mistake I've made is when their budget gets cut. So that it's always okay to cut everyone else's budget, just don't cut their budget. And so we've had a fundamental disagreement. The second disagreement we have is I believe that government has an obligation to protect the taxpayer. We're fiduciaries of the taxpayer. An elected official is not a fiduciary of the government. Their fiduciary responsibility is to the taxpayer. And one primary thing that taxpayers want are high-paying jobs in the communities they live in. And I believe that government has an obligation to aid the private sector in the creations of private sector jobs. And therefore, our county has engaged in aggressive economic development programs to create high-paying jobs. As a result of those programs, we have either maintained or created thousands of jobs in the county. And a prime example, for instance, would be the University of Cincinnati, that the Ford plant. We had a industrial site, the transmission plant that was being abandoned by Ford. Our board aggressively pursued developers to purchase the property and to keep it viable in the community. We were able to convince university. I'm sorry.
What did the county have to do, and from a financial point of view, to make that possible for developers? For the university, was there a lot of money, public money you had to spend there?
No, we spent no public money. We went to Columbus and lobbied the state to issue bonds, financing bonds that the developer could use to purchase the property. The county was obligated to guarantee $2 million of a $6 million loan. However, we then went immediately and negotiated with the University of Cincinnati to take a substantial portion of the property, and that alleviated any risk to the county from a standpoint of our guarantee of the loan. I also should indicate, interestingly enough, that the county charged the developer essentially a $500,000 fee to facilitate the financing and facilitate the work that we had done. So, unlike most government agencies, instead of handing money out, we charged a fee for what we had done.
Well, let me. Go ahead.
And let me just clear it up. It is a fee, but what we actually did was receive land from the developer in return for the financing that we had
so the land
created
is valued at.
The land is valued at $500,000, and we have a contract with the developer to purchase the land back over a period of time, and that $500,000 will be used to further our economic development efforts.
Okay. Tim Rudd, who's the Clermont County Republican Party chairperson, has a letter that he's issued. I found this on your opponent's site, and let me just read one paragraph. And this is related to what you've just been talking about. I still believe that a conservative base of the party has real concern regarding the use of taxpayers' money by the incumbent commissioner to compete against private enterprise for economic development in this county. The incumbent brags about fiscal responsibility while spending millions of dollars on economic development, where the commissioners or private corporations they established pick the winning developers. How do you respond to that paragraph?
Well, I would respond to that paragraph by saying that my opponents in this race have run a race that is based upon distortions, half-truths, and outright lies. The comment that he made in that letter contains all three of those. The realities are, you asked what I thought of my opponent not being here. Well, my opponent refuses to appear on this show. He refused to appear at a Chamber of Commerce debate. He refused to appear at a League of Women Voters debate. He has refused to be interviewed by either of the newspapers. The reason that he has refused to come here today is because he cannot answer the allegations and the charges he's made because they're false. The realities are the government has not spent millions of dollars. We essentially have spent nothing. We've arranged financing. We didn't pick winners or losers. What Mr. Rudd would choose, I suppose, is to have the Ford plant vacant, no four-year college on site, and let the building turn into a rust bucket that would come off the tax rolls and deteriorate, hurting the Batavia School District, the Batavia Township trustees, and our entire county. What we did was take a building that was virtually non-developable and find developers to develop it. We pushed this deal to every local developer in the Clermont County region, and all indicated that they would not participate in the deal because it was too risky, because they did not have the expertise. We were forced to go to Los Angeles to find someone to develop this building. Now, everyone criticized me during the whole process and said it would never work. It has worked to the great benefit of Clermont County, and it is simply not true what he says.
Well, let me ask this question, because you brought up that it was important to keep this building occupied, useful,
yes,
because of the tax benefits for school systems.
Correct.
A major part of that's used by the University of Cincinnati. Educational institutions don't pay taxes. Is this property paying taxes to school systems?
This property will pay. First of all, there's a large piece of property there. The University of Cincinnati and its development is a small piece of the project. The overall project will pay significant amounts of property tax to the county. Yes.
Well, is there a deal with the developers about deferring the beginning of that property tax? Is there some sort of tax rebate, tax delay on that? Which is not uncommon.
No, short term. But the choice was to have the property devalued and go off the tax rolls completely. You see, people say we picked losers and winners and losers. The University of Cincinnati's stated position was that they wanted a facility that had low rents. This developer was able to provide low rents given the type of type of facility it was. They wanted to be close to the eastern edge of Clermont County because they wanted it to be a regional university. They wanted to draw from Brown County, Adams County, and Clermont County. They wanted a facility that had adequate parking. The parking at the facility obviously would accommodate any business.
Right.
The only business in Clermont County, the only site in Clermont County available that would meet their needs was the Ford plant. So we didn't pick winners and losers. What we did is we facilitated private industry in developing that building. It's not for me to decide who does the development. It's my obligation to see that it gets developed to create these jobs. Do you have any idea the economic impact having the University of Cincinnati will have long-term in Clermont County? I mean, it relates to workforce development. It relates to the professors. It relates to all the secondary industries. And everyone knows that a university is the best economic development tool because of the types of cluster developments that occur around universities.
What about other economic development activities? Do you see the county as a commissioner should be active in economic development activities? I think of other industries that have settled there, Tata and others, that have found Clermont County a good place to be. Should the county commission have a role in that?
Well, sure. And Tata found Clermont County a good place to be because of the aggressive position that the county took. Look, a government agency should be involved in economic development, but they should be involved in facilitating private industry and private industry's success. The government should not be the employer. The government should not be hiring people. The government should not be investing in projects. We do none of those things. What we do is we engage in traditional tools to encourage business to come to Clermont County.
Okay, I'm confused. It would seem like, and I wish your Archie was here.
Well, I wish he were here too.
But it seems like the traditional Republican principle is support of industry, the creation of jobs, and what is it? I mean, it just seems strange to me that these don't, what you're talking about, the role of the county commission, seems like exactly what the traditional Republican position is.
It is the traditional Republican position, and although I'm running as an independent in this race, I am by far the most conservative of any candidate that's elected in Clermont County, and I have an 8-year record to show it. You have to understand, it's easy to talk about making cuts. It's difficult to do it. Let me ask you, what Democrat do you know that has run on a platform of increasing the national deficit? What Democrat have you heard that runs on the platform that he'll increase the size of government? Everyone, Republican and Democrat alike, campaign on this idea that they will be financially prudent and they will protect the taxpayer. But when it comes time to put up or shut up, none of them will do it. I did it.
I'm almost out of time. I want to ask one more question. Another charge in this letter is that a great deal of your funding for your campaign comes from outside Clermont County. From Omaha, Nebraska, from Nashville, Tennessee, from Indianapolis, from California.
That's laughable. Again, that's, as I tell you, distortions, half-truth, and lies. What happened is that there were a group of people that came to me that believed that I had a forward-looking view for Clermont County, and they asked if they could participate in a fundraiser. All of these corporations do business in Clermont County. All of them have offices in Clermont or Hamilton County and are actively engaged with Clermont County. It just so happens that some of their home offices are in towns outside of Clermont County. So this money that was donated all was by people who are doing business in Clermont County. I also should indicate that that was the first campaign report that I filed, and we have had 2 additional fundraisers since then where the entire community has come out to support me. The last time the Central Committee met to bash me for my conservative policies, I was fortunate enough to have a group of business leaders in Clermont County host a fundraiser that 250 Clermont Countyans attended.
Scott, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
And thanks for addressing these issues. And Darn it, I wish we'd have had the other guy here.
I do too. I'm sorry he's not here.
Stay tuned after the break. A levy proposal in Butler County to fund MetroParks. In the last 20 years, development has transformed thousands of acres of open farmland in Butler County into subdivisions and business districts. In a more intensely developed area, residents expect green space and parks to support a quality of life that reflects the residential development. But like everything else, parks cost money to develop, maintain, and operate. Welcome back. Since 1955, MetroParks of Butler County has developed a system that consists now of 21 parks encompassing 3,000 acres. Metro member board of commissioners who are all volunteers. The staff consists of 5 full-time employees and some seasonal hires. The full-time staff was reduced by 40% early in 2010 in anticipation of a tightening budget and reduced in an effort to reduce expenses. Without new funding, more cuts are expected in 2011. MetroParks has never had a dedicated local levy. Previous funding has consisted of local government funds, funding at the county commissioners would provide, and including a portion of the real estate transfers fees, earned revenue, grants, and donations. With the squeeze on county and state funding, those sources are decreasing rapidly. Issue 4 proposes the adoption of a $500,000 levy for 6 years. If adopted, it would generate approximately $3.8 million a year. That would mean $15 per year for every $100,000 worth of valuation. 60% of the new funds would be used for operations and maintenance, 20% for improvements, and 20% for programming. To discuss the Butler County MetroParks levy, I am joined this morning by Jonathan Granville, the Executive Director of MetroParks of Butler County. Mr. Granville has worked in the field of parks for 27 years in 3 other Ohio park districts before joining MetroParks in 2007. And Lisa Hausser, a stay-at-home mom and who lives in Liberty Township for the last 16 years. She is married with 3 children who are active in a local select soccer organization where she has served as an administrator. Welcome to Newsmakers, both of you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Jonathan, if you have never had this kind of levy before, why is it all of a sudden necessary? I mean, I hinted at this, I tried to set it up, but why do you think it's necessary at a very difficult time for voters to go to them and ask for this millage?
Well, since 1955, it's been, I think, astounding that the MetroParks has been able to do what it has done. That was in the collective effort of many volunteers, nonprofit groups, other units of government that have helped in some fashion or another. Funding, donated time and services. Unfortunately, the dollars that are coming in, the dollars that allow us to operate the park system, are in rapid decline from the sources that we have depended on for years.
And how common or unusual is the kind of levy that you're proposing to the voters in other counties, in other places in Ohio?
Actually, Butler County is sort of in a unique situation in terms of the park districts that operate in the state of Ohio. Countywide park systems are generally done by special districts of the state across Ohio. Sometimes they're called park districts, sometimes we call ourselves MetroParks. Mm-hmm. It's all the same kind of organization. The most common method and usual method across the state for funding those kinds of organizations, such as MetroParks of Butler County, has been a tax levy. A property levy, usually a very small amount, but nonetheless, that's the mainstay for funding for parks of my kind across the state.
Lisa, Butler County is it's a big county, and there's still lots of undeveloped areas. For all the development that has gone on there's still lots of undeveloped area. Mm-hmm. We talked about 21 parks, 3,000 acres. Does your family find itself actively using the parks?
We do. My family, speaking all the way back to my parents, something that was a very big event in our family. It happened, I would say, on a weekly basis. We have always enjoyed the parks. It was a big deal to us to go on picnics, to go bike riding, to go hiking, to go walking. And I have tried to instill that with my own kids, and it's an important part of our life.
You live in Liberty Township, correct?
I do.
Are there park facilities close to you in Liberty Township, which is one of the real growth areas?
There are two. There are two that are within, one is within 5 minutes, which is Rensselaer Park. We have another one, which is VOA Park, or Voice of America Park. Those are both within 15 minutes of my home.
Okay. And because you have not had this local levy in the past, one of the sources that you've used is by charging an annual fee to come into the parks. And I have to tell you, what caught my attention was there was a recent announcement that if this levy passed, you would not any longer charge that fee. Am I correct on that?
Well, mostly, but let me put the details in. What you're referring to is a motor vehicle permit cost or fee, either daily or annual. The MetroParks relies heavily on, or has traditionally relied heavily on, that source. The Park District finds that it's been a source of operating dollars over the years. Recently, the Board of Park Commissioners decided that, especially in light of the downturned economy that we're in right at this moment, and in response to a lot of comments that we've heard in the last several months from people who would really like to get out and enjoy our parks, that they're finding that motor vehicle permit a bit of a barrier to enjoy the public park system. So as a consequence, the board has pledged to waive the motor vehicle permit fees for residents should the levy pass. It will, I think, increase the number of people who are able to use their park system. The MetroParks anticipates, however, that because of increased usage, we will, in fact, recapture the lost dollars that otherwise would have come from concession sales, from facility rentals, from other sources.
Lisa, are you part of the citizen effort to pass this, correct?
Yes.
And what does that consist of? How broad-based is that? And you have a family, a young family that's using the parks. What about people who are older? What about people who may not get out to the parks that often?
The piece of the group that I'm actually involved with dealing with is more of getting to the people that I know, whether it be within the area that I live in, whether it be family, whether it be people that we're engaged in with the sports organizations. John can probably speak to what's happening with the senior citizen group. Like I said, I am talking to anyone and everyone that I can get my hands around to try to get them to understand what the levy is about and how important it is to get it passed.
What about people who may be senior citizens and may not find themselves able to use the parks that often?
Actually, we've seen not only general increases in visitation, but we've seen, if you were focusing just on that demographic, we've seen more and more senior citizens out in our parks. It makes a fantastic low-cost place to meet with the grandkids, to do programming. It's not an exclusive younger crowd that uses our park system.
Here's the tough question. What's the implications of not passing this? And you already mentioned cut staff 40%. If this doesn't pass, given the projected declines in other funding, what happens?
Well, we are, like any political subdivision of the state of Ohio, required to operate with a balanced budget. I've told my staff we're unable to print money in our basement. So we will, in fact, do the best we have with whatever resources the taxpayers and the residents give us. However, 4 parks are currently closed. I suspect that with the lack or additional decline of revenue, we'll have no choice except to cut programming and facility access during the coming year.
So further cuts, further closures.
Got to balance the budget. We try to operate like a business. We have a very business-oriented board. we don't wait for the negative balance to hit. We take steps to get ahead of change.
It's always interesting for a group that's going out there to the ballot for the first time. So we'll watch this very closely between now and November 2nd and see what happens the evening of November 2nd. So thank you for being here this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for making Newsmakers a part of your Sunday morning. Join us again next week as we prepare for November 2nd elections. Have a good week.